Welcome back to another episode of RNT Fitness Radio, and today I'm joined by one of our members of the RNT family based stateside, Stazie Hyslop. Stacey's been on one hell of a journey with us so far, and if you ever wanted to hear our mission of using the physical as the vehicle for the greater good in action, Stacey's story epitomizes this. Having battled with clinical depression and anxiety for over 20 years, Stazie talks about her road to recovery and how dropping over 50 pounds through 2019 has been a huge catalyst in giving her a new outlook in life. In fact, Stazie is also the co-author of the book I Defeated Depression, which details her spiral into depression and ultimately her amazing recovery. She wrote the book with her dad, who gives his perspective as the parent and how he and his wife helped her with her recovery. The authors have used their pen names Samantha and Richard Olivier in order to protect their identities of the character. The book is available on Amazon and in all good bookshops, and I've linked it in the show notes today for those interested. For now though, let's dive into Stacey's story. How's your day going? Whereabouts are you calling in from?
I am calling from just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in the US. It is 4 minutes past 8 in the morning. So just getting my day started. Well, I say just getting my day started, up at 5, in the gym, 5:45. So a great way to start the day.
Brilliant. So you're a morning person when it comes to training?
I am now. Yeah, and that's something that is really new for me, but it's something that I've had to kind of learn and find my way around. But it's interesting because here in Ohio, unlike England, we have real extremes of weather, and that just the weather just dictates your whole day. Yeah. So, right now it's I think it's like -9.
Wow.
So, but later on, it's going to be like 25 or something. So, am I going to get my steps in this morning when, I feel at my best in the mornings, but it's going to be really, really cold? Or am I going to wait several hours and do it later on in the day when it's a little bit more bearable?
What do you typically do?
I actually bear the cold. I get it done. Yeah, I really feel the benefits of exercising first thing in the morning. Yeah, and also that time from 6 till 8, it's my time. No one can take it away from me. Whereas if I wait until later on in the day, things come up during the day that I wasn't expecting, and suddenly my time is taken, and I'm behind on steps, or I've missed a training session. But that kind of 6 till 8 a.m., that's my time.
Yeah, there's something very special about doing things in the morning, which serves as your anchor in the day. And it's that special period where nothing is going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Once everything gets going from 9 a.m. onwards, it's impossible to dictate your day, really.
Exactly. Yeah. To a certain extent, it's kind of out of your control, a lot of it, with work and stuff. So, that's a best part of the day is 6 till 8 for me.
Brilliant. Do you work from home?
I do predominantly. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I work from home sort of 3 or 4 days a week, and then I travel 1 or 2 days a week. But it's great. It suits me, and it have a little bit more freedom than perhaps an office job. So if I start work at 8:30, that's okay. I'll finish a little bit later on in the day. So,
yeah. How do you find getting in your steps when you're working from home? Because I know that's a big problem a lot of people have.
Yeah, that's okay because, I've put that into my 6 till 8 routine. But of course, with the change of seasons, it's not getting light until 7:30 here. And I, in the summer months, I was really enjoying getting up early and being outside at 6 a.m., when it's already 80 degrees and it's light. But now it's a little trickier because it's not getting light until sort of 7:30. So, but it's not unusual for me to go out with a headlamp on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That might be the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's a whole new outfit I've created for the winter months.
RNT stepper outfit.
That's it. You could start selling headlamps, Akash. RNT logo on the front.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you're almost you're 7-8 months now into the journey. 8 months into your journey now.
8 months into the journey, yeah. And I started back beginning of April this year. And it's been quite a ride. I'm so pleased with the results. So far, I've lost like 57 pounds.
Wow.
That was always the immediate goal. And I still got a bit more to go, but I'm certainly on the right track. And it's what I've learned along the way has been so valuable. You know, I'm lucky that I know my mental self really, really well. You know, I consider that quite a gift to know my mental self really well. And what RNT has done, it's allowed me to know my physical self really well too, which I didn't really know. I thought I did, but now I have a much better understanding of my body, what it's capable of, what it's not capable of, how it responds to certain activities, foods, environments. So yeah, got so much out of it, and not even completed the journey yet. So very excited.
The journey continues.
Yeah. You bet.
So before we talk about what you've learned in the journey so far in dropping over 50 pounds, let's go back to firstly why you wanted to start this journey, and why you wanted to bring the focus to your physical as opposed to all the mental work you've done as well. So maybe there's two parts to that question there. So let's start with why you wanted to embark on this particular journey, and then we'll go back even further and discuss the other side of the journey as well.
Yeah, you know, my physical self, I've always been unhappy with it. It's always been a kind of a niggle in the background, you know, even to the point of, you know, not wanting to look at myself in the mirror. I didn't like what I saw. I didn't have any pleasure in shopping for clothes. I didn't have any pleasure in putting clothes on or wearing them. No pleasure in getting dressed up. I never felt like I was dressed up because there was never that feeling of, oh yeah, I look good today. I never had that because I was always so unhappy with the way that I looked, because, you know, I was overweight. At my heaviest, I was 216 pounds. And, you know, that's a lot. And it's not until, you know, you see the photos from when I started this journey at 216 to now, that's when you realize, wow, that was really big. At the time, it doesn't feel as big as it looks. Because, you know, I was able to, you know, maintain, you know, getting around. It never impacted my daily life or anything. But had I carried on the way I did, then, yeah, probably would have done. So this was a great time for me to join RNT and do this. So,
what was the switch you had which forced you into making that focus? Was there a particular defining moment you had which made it change?
It's really interesting. I actually had no intention of doing this. And it was actually my sister who signed up first. And she called me up. She said, yeah, next I'm starting with RNT Fitness. This is, you know, this is what I'm going to do starting from next week. She said, you know, check it out, have a look. So I did. And then I signed up. And that was 8 months ago. So I never actually planned to do this, but like many people who have tried to lose weight in the past, you know, it's on, it's off. There's 10 pounds gone here. There's 12 pounds back on. And that's the dieting side of it. what I like, the difference between a diet and a transformation with RNT is that RNT does the psychological side of losing weight. And that's why diets are not terribly successful a lot of the time. You have to do the psychological side of it to lay that foundation, lay that groundwork. And that's what helps you maintain the weight, which is why so many that are doing a diet, while they lose weight, and then they put it back on again and more, which is exactly what I did. I was absolute textbook dieter, yo-yo dieting for years. And I was very much an emotional eater. And highs or lows, because I'm quite an emotional person. So high emotions or low emotions, food was always a coping mechanism for me to deal with that. So it was, reward. A lot of reward was food-based. So
what do you put that down to?
The food being reward-based?
Yeah, using food as a clutch to fill voids. Because ultimately, I'm assuming from what you've said, the reason you got to 216 pounds was through the emotional eating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was the driver behind this now?
Thinking that it's going to make you feel good, and you do. You eat crap food and you get that immediate high, and then you get that real low, and you get that regret. Emotions are mine particularly are pretty strong, and I think food is also not only a reward, but it's also a way of self-medicating. I had some struggles with depression years ago, and I self-medicated with food. Thankfully, I didn't turn to alcohol or drugs or anything like that as a coping mechanism, but I did turn to food to make me feel good. And then the food became an addiction, and that's what's got me here. And that's why I turned to RNT.
When it came to some of the mental struggles that you dealt with, do you have more insight into the timeframes here and how it relates to the journey that you're on now?
Yeah.
And where you are mentally coming into this physical journey?
Yeah. So I was officially diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety in November 2004. And, I'd had a lot of symptoms that I suppressed probably like 20 years before then. And November 2004 was when it all kind of erupted. And I made some pretty bad choices and spent 3 months in a clinic in London in kind of rehab. And I think, with depression, anxiety, there are always reasons, and a lot of it does go back to childhood. It's that whole cliche thing when you sit down in front of your counselor and the first thing they say is, "How was your childhood?" It's true. That's the first few years again lay the foundation for your adulthood. So, and I had my parents divorced when I was 3 years old, and my sister and I were taken to the north of the country, 150 miles north, just south of Manchester, to live with my mum and my stepdad. And my mum had some difficulties with the caring and empathy side of parenting. And it's interesting because she also had a history of mental health issues. She had postnatal depression, and her father did as well. And I do believe that depression is partly environmental and partly genetic as well. I reached a real, what I thought was a peak of my mental well-being about 3 years ago. But there was still that physical element that I was desperately unhappy with. And now that I'm 57 pounds lighter and I quite like the way I look, it's really put the cherry on top. It really has. So, but, you know, almost 15 years later, after my diagnosis, every minute of every day, the health of my brain is a priority, because without it, I have nothing. And I know what that's like. So there are things that I do to maintain my well-being now, and to ensure that I never go back to that place that I was a few years ago.
Do you want to share some of your strategies you use to keep you mentally at your best?
Absolutely. Daily quiet time is what I call my daily quiet time. So, and it might just be 1 minute, it could be 20 minutes. No screens, no sound, no nothing, and just kind of processing the events of the day and organizing them. You know, I found when I was depressed that my brain was so chaotic. I was just living in complete chaos and just striving for a sense of calm and daily quiet time, organizing those thoughts and putting them into some sort of order, discarding the ones that I don't need anymore, is very much part of that. Always searching for the opportunity in something. This is absolute key for me. So even in tragic circumstances, I'm always looking for an opportunity, and there always is one. I'll give you an example. So last year, one of the most devastating things happened to me, and that was that I lost my chocolate Labrador, Hugo. He'd been my companion for 12 years, and you know, he was amazing. I was so blessed to have him in my life, and he sadly passed away last year. And if there was going to be anything that was going to be a trigger for relapse into depression, it was going to be that. So I was quite worried about myself, and I know that my family were worried too. And so I really had to put into practice what I'd learned, because I'd taken the decision that once I'd hit my rock bottom, on the way back up, I was going to learn. So the opportunity, you know, with losing Hugo was, I'm going to save money every month. I'm going to have more time. I'll be able to go away. I'll have more freedom. And it sounds cold, you know, to say those things as a result of a loss, but they were opportunities that I got from that. And I apply that to everything. And you know, there are some situations where it's very difficult to find an opportunity, but there is always one. There is always one, and that is to learn, so that you're better equipped next time. So I feel that it can almost never fail, really, having that opportunity. So. I surround myself with good, kind-hearted people. Unfortunately, not everybody in this world has the best intentions. But one of the things that I do to maintain my well-being is I surround myself with people that motivate me, inspire me, are good and kind-hearted. And ultimately, what I'm trying to achieve is I'm trying to be the best version of myself. And the people that you surround yourself with have an influence on that.
That's the three key tips. So quiet time, looking for the opportunity, and surrounding yourself with good quality, positive people.
Yeah.
I think the second one is huge. And I'm not sure if you heard one of the earlier podcasts with Man Meat, where we talk about the power of universal laws and the law of duality, which is essentially there's always two sides of the coin. So if something is amazing, there's always going to be a downside you need to be aware of.
Right.
And similarly, if you're in the pit, if you put yourself down and you've experienced something really low, there's always an upside to bring you back to neutral. And essentially described there is exactly that universal law of duality.
Right.
Sort of finding balance.
Right. That's interesting because I haven't listened to that podcast. It's probably one of the few that I haven't listened to, but I'll make a point of looking that up now. But,
brilliant. It was one of the more recent ones. I think came out last week.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And when did you this happened 3 years ago. So for 20 years before that, you didn't have any of these strategies you were armed with. What was some of it's impossible to say what were some of the struggles, but what were some of the key moments here that you look back on and can really draw learnings from now that you struggled with over the course of the 20 years? And have you had time to process what's happened over that period of time and dig into more about why?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very much one for having all the feelings and having emotions. I'm not one for suppressing them at all, because I truly believe that if you do that, eventually they're going to come and bite you on the arse. So I very much deal with what's going on now and process it all and pick it apart and dissect it.
Have you been able to reflect on that period and draw learnings from it when you were in the real dark days of depression?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've had to, because I've had to accept, because I think one of the steps to my well-being is acceptance. And so it's getting to a place where I'm comfortable with the things that I did and the things that I went through. And I don't try to put pressure on myself to justify those actions. It's almost like that was my journey. And, again, it's that cliche, it's made me who I am today. And people say to me, you're like a different person. And I do correct them on that, because I say, I'm not a different person. I'm the same person. I'm just a better version of myself.
And so you mentioned some of your peers have mentioned, how did your family support or process everything you were going through over the years?
It was, of course, when you have severe depression, it's not just the patient that's suffering. It's very much the people surrounding that person, and it's a family and friends disease, unfortunately, because for the person that's depressed, I lost my ability to feel. So I lost my ability to feel any love from my family, the ability to feel even something like, the heat of the sun. You're so consumed in your own head, you cannot see beyond your own head. And to shut the door like that on the outside world, is traumatic for family to have that, because depression makes you push everyone away. I was extremely lucky that my family never abandoned me. They never did. They always had the best intentions for me and just wanted to do everything that they could to get me well again and get me back to my old self. And there was nothing more that they could do. I was very, very lucky to have their support all the way through. And I think the only thing that perhaps they could have done was actually for themselves, because depression isn't something that you can see. I think there's a lot to be gained from speaking to other people that have been through the same thing, or families of patients, and having those common experiences. So I think it's knowledge and comfort from themselves was possibly the only thing they could have done. Again, there's nothing more that they could have done for me. They did absolutely everything, but perhaps more they could have done for themselves.
Yeah. When you were recovering from the depression, you were both an inpatient and an outpatient.
Yeah.
What were the differences there? And what were the differences in strategies they were trying for you to come out of this pit?
Yeah, when I was an inpatient, I was an inpatient because I had found the courage to actually say to a healthcare professional, I don't want to live anymore. And as soon as you say those words, things go into practice, and everything goes up a notch. So when I was in the clinic, there were group therapies, psychotherapy, psychology. There was one-to-one therapy. So, I had counselling, I had sessions with my psychiatrist, but there was also a lot of free time as well. And I think what they could have done, actually, and I think is something that I think needs to change if it hasn't changed, and that is to incorporate some sort of physical therapy into the day, as part of the programming, even if it's going for a walk around the grounds, or even better, if they had a workout room, in the hospitals and in the clinic, that would be, fantastic. When it comes to outpatient care, a lot of that was really medication reviews, making sure that my meds were still working for me. I wasn't getting any more side effects, seeing how my mood was. And I did go through a short course on dialectical behavioral therapy, which actually is really, really, really great. And it's all about being in the moment, so mindfulness. And that actually really helped. So it's just, dealing with the immediate here and now, because depression thrives on the what ifs, stuff that hasn't even happened yet. And so making your world smaller and having that mindfulness and literally just dealing with the information that you have right now, I think is really powerful. So I was lucky to go on to that course that was offered to me by the National Health Service when I was living in the UK. And I'm really glad that I did it. Yeah.
It's really surprising when you were an inpatient that physical exercise wasn't a part of this.
Yeah.
So much research to back up that working on the physical to improve your mental health.
Yeah. I mean, that was, when I was an inpatient, that was 2005. So maybe things have changed. I ought to do a bit of research actually and see, if exercise rooms are something that are being offered as part of these kind of rehab units. If they're not, then I really think they should be.
Yeah. It's very surprising. I mean, I'm hopeful that it's changed since 2005, but because the benefits are super clear. And as we come to discuss your RNT journey, you'd have probably experienced the power of the physical to act as a vehicle to take your mental health to another level.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what this has done. So, I'm forever grateful to the RNT team for that. Yeah.
Amazing. Before we dive into the RNT journey, I just wanted to ask about your three keys, or formula, as you call it, formula to your well-being.
Yeah.
When did you go through a process of trying a lot of things before you came onto that, or did you just have an aha moment where you suddenly started feeling better? What was the evolution to finding these three keys that you now maintain in your daily habits? And following up to that, why did that not facilitate improvements in your physical being by default?
I think those three things came to me as a result of really looking into myself and having the ability to look into myself from an outsider. And so I go back to the, not suppressing emotions or feelings or thoughts. It's embracing the horror of them, and never pushing them away, and just picking them apart and asking myself, why am I feeling like this right now? If I carry on feeling like this in 10 minutes, how is that going to affect me? So it's really looking at the bigger picture. With the quiet time that is really paramount in my well-being. I go back to when I was very depressed and had anxiety. There was so much chaos in my brain. Like it just never stopped, and I was just craving some peace and quiet in my mind. And I think there was a moment when I found it, and I'm definitely one for screens and music and sound. And there was a time when I didn't have any, and I found myself just sitting, and the silence was a new sound. And that silence almost created new space in my brain. It was filled with that silence, and absolutely loved it. And then that moved on to okay, how am I going to use this? How am I going to use this silence? Okay, this is what's happened in my day today. This is what I've learned from today, and kind of organizing those thoughts and putting them into that silence.
Did you journal? Or do you journal?
I don't. No, and I think you guys are quite big on that, aren't you?
Yeah, just what you were describing there. I feel like the perfect addition to that silence would be just adding a notebook in front of you and downloading your thoughts. Right.
Yeah. It's not something that I've done. I have a lot. I have a lot in my head that that I remember of my experiences, and again I use my quiet time to process the events of the day. But I will give that some thought.
I think it could be a good addition anyway. Not maybe a replacement, but definitely a potential addition, just to help you download the thoughts. And you might find it gives you a different sense of stillness and a different sense of quiet time that becomes another anchor and focus in your day. And it really brings that focus to yourself again and allows you to process your thoughts, observations, and struggles that you might be going through.
Yeah. And I think, where opportunity came from, I was so desperate to feel something positive. I think naturally I started looking for any opportunity, no matter how small it was. But I don't think there was any real kind of defining moment where that happened. It just, I almost think it's my subconscious brain. I'm quite a believer in the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And, you know, the stuff that goes on in the background is going on in the subconscious mind. And I think that's always working away. We don't realize it at the time, but I believe that it's still working in the background. And I think that where I found opportunity, that was my subconscious mind doing some work for me and then putting it into my conscious mind so that I can now use it and apply it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. One question I have as a follow-up to the three is I've always been a believer that while the physical is the vehicle, the body is also a representation of the mind.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how at the beginning of the RNT journey, you did a lot of, and continue to do so through the RNT journey, you do a lot of psychological work on, psychologically, you do a lot of psychological work to help create that underpinning and that foundation to your transformation.
Yeah.
What's been some of the work that you've done on your mind through this RNT journey that's helped you not only lose a substantial amount of weight, but put you in a position to now keep it off and continue to improve as you go along?
You know, I've learned so much about my physical self during this journey, and also learned more about my psychological self as well. The relationship that I had and still have with food, I think it goes with any addiction. You'll always be an addict, if you like. It's just, you know, managing that addiction. And unlike other addictions, such as alcohol or drugs or whatever, we still have to eat. And I think that's what makes food addiction particularly hard, because I would love to just stop eating because I'd be really, really successful. But I can't do that. It's not practical. And, you know, a lot of the psychological learning has very much come with my check-ins with Ivan that I do with him every week. And he's great. We go backwards and forwards, and, you know, and he'll say to me, you know, why do you think it is that you're feeling like this? And, you know, what do you think you can do this week to better change? And so I think, I mean, it's been so valuable, because I can never reach that absolute peak of well-being, but having the information now that RNT has given me about my physical self and my psychological self, having that greater awareness of my relationship with food, and you know, is something that I'll, you know, so precious to me that I'll, you know, apply for the rest of my life and successfully.
Forces a lot of introspection. Especially in those check-ins when you're asked those questions, like, for example, if potentially you slipped on your food and you maybe had a relapse with the food, you start asking a question, because your goal is to lose body fat. You have to start asking. That's obviously going to affect it. So the questions you ask yourself are probably, well, what triggered that? And then now you find yourself asking really hard questions of yourself, and, okay, what really triggered this?
Yes, exactly.
You uncover.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, and I have slipped up. I have totally slipped up. I've had some binge sessions, and 9 times out of 10, it comes back to, it's an emotional response. You know, so something has happened in my day, and it's caused me to turn to food. And so now what I'm learning to do is interrupt that cycle of having the emotion, the thought, and then the activity. So the emotion might be, I know, let's go with anger. And then the thought will be, food is going to make me feel better. And the action is getting in the car, going to the grocery store and buying a load of crap and eating it. And you've got to interrupt that cycle. So that's what I've been doing. And most of the time successfully.
Yeah. When do you catch it? What do you tell yourself, or what do you do?
I'm always trying to think ahead of time. So right now, my weakness is caramel M&Ms. Love them and hate them. And so I'm always trying to think ahead. If I eat that bag of caramel M&Ms, how am I going to feel? How am I going to feel physically? And how am I going to feel mentally? So mentally, I'm going to have regret. That's the first thing. And I really try to live without regrets, because regrets, they can be small and they can be enormous, and they can be, regrets that are fleeting, that, last 5-10 minutes, or you can have regrets that last a lifetime. So that's the biggest one. And because I've learned, I've lived with regrets and all different sizes of it, I know how it makes me feel, and I don't like it. So I'm saving myself from my own feelings.
When you're in a state of heightened anger or frustration, how do you rationalize with yourself? I'm going to go back on the anger thing, because actually I never get angry. I never get angry with other people. I might get angry with myself occasionally. So it's such a negative emotion to have. I don't see any good that comes from anger. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make the people around me feel good. So I don't own it. What I do is I learn from the regret. So I want to change that anger into learning, and don't punish myself for having done it. As long as I learn from it and I can apply that next time I'm faced with that, am I going to get in the car and go to the grocery store or not? So it's very much interrupting that cycle. Do you have any specific examples you can share with us where you haven't interrupted the feedback loop?
Where I haven't interrupted it? Yeah, again, food has been my thing, and it's been a reward, and it's changing my definition of reward. And that's something that I've learned from RNT. That's very much in the psychological side of things, actually. So for years, decades, my definition of reward has been, I'm going to eat this because it makes me feel good, and I've worked really hard all week, so I'm going to eat this because it makes me happy. So it's changing my definition of reward, which is something that RNT has helped me to do. And it's having more respect for what I'm putting into my body, and rewarding my physical self, rewarding my body, and putting crap food into it is not rewarding it. So I think that's where there's the switch, there's the change of mind where that comes in.
You're thinking about nourishing your body as opposed to punishing it. Yeah.
It's almost, it's almost seeing your physical self as something that you're separated from. It's almost like a bit of a mental game with your physical self. Your mental self is one being and your physical self is another being. And it's playing that game with the both of them,
It's very much mind body.
Oh, hugely, hugely. Yeah. And yes, very much so. And like this is 90% mental. And I think, that goes with a lot of addictions, is you have to be in the right frame of mind. You have to be ready in order for it to be successful. If you're not in the right headspace for it, you can try it 100 times and it won't work. So, but you've really got to look into yourself and just, I'm always asking myself, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I feeling like this? How am I going to feel if I eat this? How am I going to feel if I turn it down? Somebody again, I'm looking for an opportunity. Somebody offers me something to eat that isn't great. And I have that split moment where I can make that decision of I'm going to potentially regret it, or I'm going to be super happy with myself because I've made the right decision. And it's, of course, I want to feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel good by making the right choices.
In the moments that you've not been able to make the correct split moment decision,
yeah,
you've been able to identify why. You mentioned there's a couple of moments you have had binges.
Yeah.
In which have you really introspected on those particular situations?
Ultimately, I think it comes down to the addictive properties of crap food. I think it's a craving for them. And it's a craving that I've satisfied for years and years. And now all of a sudden I'm fighting that craving, but just occasionally it pops up. And sometimes I go with it and I don't want to process it. And maybe that's a moment of weakness for me. Yvonne said to me, if ever you think you're going to have a binge, send me a message and we'll go through it. And I did a check-in with him a few weeks ago, and I did binge at the weekend, and I thought, oh, he's going to ask me why I didn't, text him, because I wanted to binge. That's why I didn't want him to stop me from doing it.
You didn't want to ask yourself that question?
Yeah. I wanted to follow through. And I think maybe it's not a complete disaster when I have those moments, as long as I think about it afterwards and remember how I felt afterwards as well, because I never feel good when that's happened. And as long as I remember that, then those binges are going to get less and less. And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, there's definitely an emotional trigger that always causes these cravings and binges, because if you're feeling great, like if you're feeling great, you're probably not going to binge. But if something triggers you, or something comes up from the past in your subconscious that you haven't quite dealt with, that's most prone to one needing something to satisfy that craving or the emotional void inside.
Yeah, exactly. And, this time of year, and I know this, Christmas, around Christmas time, it's tricky for a lot of people. And that does apply to me. So 7 years ago, Christmas Eve, 7 years ago, my mum passed away. So, and it's, this time of year for the last 6 years has been difficult. I think every year that it's not going to be as bad as last year, and then here it is again, and here I am struggling a little bit. And that's when I've turned to food for comfort. And so it's peaked kind of like in the month of December. and then it, historically it's just flattened out and carried on. So this is the first year in 7 years that, again, I'm interrupting that cycle of using food as a way of positively remembering, this time 7 years ago.
How do you plan to change the reflection and the remembrance of your mother this year?
It's accepting it. Again, it's getting to a place where you're comfortable with the events that happened, during the last week or two that she was alive. And it's processing all of that. And it's being accepting and just being at peace with it all. I think this year is a turning point for me because of my physical self, because my physical self is so much better. Well, it's the best it ever has been. That is better enabling me to cope mentally. And this is a big test for that this time of year. So far so good. I think I've had one binge this month.
Okay, and that's a big improvement from last year?
Oh, absolutely. Because, when you have a traumatic event, that's the justification for everything. It can justify so much. Eating, drinking, going, I need to have fun. I need to feel good. My mum passed away this year. So, I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend money that I haven't got, or, I'm going to eat food, or I'm going to go out and party. It can, trauma can justify a lot of bad behavior, negative behavior, should I say.
Yeah, I mean, most negative behavior stems from a point of or moment of distress, whether it's current or in the past, and it's been flared up.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'm going to be in England for Christmas as well this year. And I wasn't able to go last year. So, it'll be great to be around the family around Christmas. So that will really help as well.
Well, you can just tell already by the way you're speaking just how much more self-aware you are. Like, you're already so in tune with what's going on, which is a massive win in itself, and just shows how much more introspective you are and aware of your body's feedback, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I've got from doing this is getting to know my physical self better than I have done. It's how my body responds to this exercise, or if I'm going to eat this, how is my body going to respond to it? Or if I miss that training session, how am I going to feel? But again, it's that connection between mental and physical, which is absolutely essential, and it's key in the success of it. Yeah.
Amazing. What are your plans for 2020 in terms of your physical being? Where do you want to take it?
So my physical being 2020, I want to get down to 135, wow. 135 pounds. Yeah. So I think I've got
pounds.
Like 25 to go, I think. Yeah. So, and then I'll sign up with RNT again. And I'd like to, get a bit of muscle definition. So, again, this is all about me.
Mm.
This is all about me feeling good, and to have that muscle definition and a bit of strength is going to make me feel good, and I'm gonna enjoy looking in the mirror rather than avoiding it.
I mean, what you've said is absolutely spot on. It is all about you. And the beauty of focusing on your physical self, whether your goal is fat loss or whether it's strength or muscle building, is that you realign focus to yourself, you bring control back to your life, and ultimately you gain more confidence, both in your body, your life, yourself, all across the board.
Absolutely. And I think, what I'm always trying to improve is self-confidence and self-esteem. And I don't, I think as human beings, we can never have enough of those two.
And just taking yourself through this journey has boosted your self-confidence. Oh,
hugely. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like what I see.
Brilliant.
It goes back to the why, doesn't it? And, my why was always, I haven't owned a full length mirror in years and years because I couldn't stand to look in it. And it's on my Christmas list. I hope I get one this year because I for years I couldn't stand to look at myself from the waist down. But that's changed. That's changed now. So.
And what is your why behind your why?
My why behind my why. My why behind my why. I mean, it just comes back to liking what you see. It makes my eyes happy, which makes my brain happy, which gives me self-esteem, which better enables me to deal with life's unexpected ups and downs. And it's, I think a lot of what we do is about coping mechanisms for future events that we're not even aware of yet. And it's making that link between, again, it's physical self, isn't it? I like what I see, and better equips me to deal with the emotional traumas of life. And there will be some. There will be some, but
there's also that sense of, and I'm sure you might be able to relate in what you said, that life will always throw ups and downs. You can't always control them, but what you can control is your physical being. You can control doing your steps. You can control what goes in your mouth. And I think that's where that sense of self-esteem comes from, because you can control that.
Yeah.
Having that control in yourself better equips you for situations where you might not be in control.
Yeah. And I think having a better physical self equips you to deal with things better emotionally as well, yeah.
Amazing. What would you say to anyone who's potentially going through anything you've been through in the past 20 years?
Well, it is temporary. It is absolutely temporary. What you're feeling right now isn't going to last forever. That is the disease of depression. It's unkind. It's evil. It pushes everything positive away. Try to be mindful of that. And I go back to the opportunity. Try to find the opportunity in anything. And then if you can do that, it gives you that little spark of hope. And as you start to see opportunity, you start to bring back some light into your life as well. Talk to other people as well. Don't be afraid to use scary words. I was for years. I spent years and years actually being suicidal. And I wish I had told somebody sooner than I did, because it's such a dirty, aggressive word. We want to protect our loved ones by not saying it. But I wish I had. I wish I had said it sooner. Yeah. Depression thrives on inactivity. it's, I was thinking before we, hooked up this morning, I was thinking about, the kind of elements of depression and what it kind of represented for me. And one of the things that I'll never forget is that when I was depressed, I would spend hours and hours in sweatpants in a tracksuit because they were easy to get on, they were comfortable, loose fitting. And it was a real representation of how I was feeling. There was no effort made into my, physical appearance. And 20 years later, here I am. I now live again in sweatpants, but not because I'm depressed, because I'm exercising all the time and I feel great.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I thought that was, and that just came to me this morning, kind of made me laugh a little bit, and I realised that.
I love that. If you could sum up how RNT has transformed your life in 2019 so far, what would it be?
RNT has put the cherry on top for me, for my mental well-being, as a result of getting into the best physical shape of my life. So getting into the best physical shape of my life has enabled me to get into the best mental shape of my life. You cannot put a price on that. It's absolutely priceless. Absolutely priceless.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Stazie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was, I had fun.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.